Oh, what is going on, everybody? It is literally just turned 8:12 p.m. on October 8th, 2021. We are here. It's teenagers, toddlers, and twins. Oh, I'm sorry, September 8th. I'm glad John's here to stop me or correct me. So it's September 8th. His face was like, what? Ryan's getting ahead of himself. But we will go more into depth to that in a second. But John, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing great. So it is September 8th. Can you believe that on September 17th, we will have been doing these podcasts for a year?
Wow, is that when it started?
It's a 1 year
It's
anniversary.
it seems longer ago than a
I know.
year.
I know. It seems like we've been doing this forever. Like we should be famous by now, but we're getting there. We're still chipping away. Uh, Very happy with everything we've done so far. Very happy with your help and everybody else's help. I think that we have done something very good here. It's
Yeah.
heartfelt.
Well,
It's sincere. Yeah, go ahead.
well, we are famous with both of those people that listen to us.
I say that to Richard all the time. All four people are listening to us. All seven people are listening to us. But in all seriousness, anyone who's listening, we actually are very close to 2,000 downloads with teenagers, toddlers, and twins. I think we probably could be at more, but I kind of slacked a little bit due to things that were going on in my own life and putting some emphasis on other podcasts. But that's an entirely different podcast subject. So so, John, I'm going to kind of, I've dropped the topic on you as I always do. So it's September 8th, not October 8th. The hotel I work at, has been open for about 3 weeks now. Is it 3 weeks? Almost 4 weeks. I'm losing track of time, obviously. And one thing I wanted to talk about, because I realized it today, is fear and procrastination. So you and I often talk about the side effects of fear, where it can be outbursts, right? It can be blaming, it can be, something, addiction, as we always say, erratic behavior, whatever the case may be. But I found myself, and if anyone I'm working with is listening, they might be thinking the same thing. Hopefully, I don't end up in human resources tomorrow. But I found that fear is freezing me at times at work. Like I kind of just, I know there's things I need to do. There's a lot going on, not just for me, for everybody. And then I find myself maybe not putting as much effort as I should be. And I know I should be doing it. But there's moments where I just feel overwhelmed, and then I know I have to check back in. So what are your summary thoughts on what I'm saying right now?
Well, I think that fear can play a role in us procrastinating. Um, it's, truth be told, one of my strengths is procrastinating.
Okay.
And I say that, with a slight tongue in cheek. But, when you do things intuitively, sometimes you just know you don't have to do that right now. Or you don't have to do that at all. And so you procrastinate. I procrastinate, and then, oh, I don't have to do it. See, good. Um, but I do things at the last minute
Mm-hmm.
because I work better, when I'm having to be focused. It's like, okay, you gotta run with it all the way now to the bell.
Yeah.
And whereas if I had a week to do things, it would take me the whole week to do what I do, at the last part. And there's an intuitive sense. I know when I've been procrastinating, I know, okay, now I have to start doing it, and I've learned to trust that over the years. Also, though, when there are things that I am uncomfortable about or frightened of not being able to do correctly, that can motivate me to put it off and to procrastinate, because that fear of making a mistake or not getting it right. And so I think there's more than one way to look at procrastination. But, certainly it sounds like what you're talking about, if you're not into a pattern of what to do and how to do it, and you're trying to figure that pattern out, there could be some hesitancy that one would perceive as procrastination.
Yeah, and that's to give you a little bit of insight. And I keep saying this to Monica when I'm, coming home and talking about my day and where we're at in the opening. First of all, I'm with you. I, for whatever reason, I say this all the time. If there's stress going on in my personal life, I tend to be fatigued. I tend to have achy joints, like all the things that can come with stress, right? When I'm stressed at work, that's when I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like I'm ready. Like 400 people in the ballroom. Like, so different kinds of stress, but I'm sorry, I digress. So when I'm talking to Monica, I'm telling her, I don't think any of us have opened a hotel yet, right? Any of us that are on property, anyone from my team. And in most cases, we were either hired or transferred within the company or, throughout our lives. And there's a handbook, right? There's tools. If we become a department head or a manager, we see some things that we may want to change. But for the most part, we have a staff, right? We have the tools. We have some sort of handbook. There's some sort of regimen. So I'm coming in and I have the chance to integrate, right? But some of us are in this unique position where we're opening the hotel. We need to build the policies and procedures. We need to build the team. We need to build, buy the equipment. We need to get organized. And we're still, in some cases catching up with all of that. And like I'm saying, there was not this week. This week I definitely zoned back in, but last week there was times where I'm in the storage room and I'm looking around and I just find myself spinning in circles because I felt overwhelmed. Does that make sense? I just was like, I don't even want to do this right now.
Yeah, but when we get really frightened, we aren't able to access the thinking part of the brain. And, and the thing is, it's our negative fantasies that frighten us most of the time. When we're fantasizing what could go wrong or what might go wrong. And then responses to fear or fight, flight, or freeze. And so we can scare ourselves with our thoughts about things that could happen that we don't want to happen because we're coming from the fear of what we don't want, to where we actually freeze as a response to it because we don't know what to do next. Because we haven't found, well, what am I afraid of losing here? If I do this now, what am I afraid I'm going to get wrong? Or, how is this not going to work? What am I afraid? And when you can find the fear and then you start to do the loving things, you like give yourself the "Are you a cat?" You respect yourself. You give yourself understanding, acceptance, caring, appreciation, and trust yourself. Then you're working to overcome those fears. But we have to be conscious of that. We have to recognize that there's something going on emotionally, and we have to look for it. And if we don't look for it, it's going to be hard to find it. It's not, going to easily pop up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was, that's a big part of the thing. Like I said, for the most part, not actually my entire career up until now, there was policies, procedures, and tools, and now I'm doing all that, and I'm kind of and maybe that's it. It's like, oh my goodness, like what if I do this and it doesn't work, or what if I do this and it doesn't work, and where I'm at, or when I check back in, I keep saying, that would be my thing, or maybe an old mixed martial arts coaching term when maybe that's where it comes from, where we're not really, our head's not in the game that day, on the mats. And then the coach is like, check back in. And, sometimes I can hear former coaches saying like, check back in, like check back in. So what I did to check back in was I listened to, I don't know if you know who Jocko Willink is. You ever heard of him?
I think you may have talked about him.
Yeah, I talk about him a lot. Ex Navy SEAL commander, very, very, very good influencer, one of the best influencers. And that's what I was doing on Sunday is I sat down here in the basement, put on some Jocko podcast, and suddenly I was motivated again. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is if anybody asks me like, well, how did you overcome this hurdle in the opening process, or what was your next step? It's my answer would be it's nothing that I really did on my own. There were some things, but I had to be like, listen, I gotta turn to somebody else. I'm me myself. I am not finding the answers right now, so I need to turn to something that motivates me, and that's what I did, and I was able to get checked back in. But still, there's some points where it's just like I get locked up, or you get locked up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you get to the next step, and then there's one more thing, and then get to the next step,
Well,
and
because you're scaring yourself. See, the spontaneity of the moment and the synchronicity of the universe. What we were talking about before we came on, about me not being able to find out where I find out what microphone is being used.
yeah,
And then, you just try, and you said, I just tried things and then I found it. And then you said, that's how you learned to podcast. You tried things, you made mistakes, but you weren't an expert on podcasting. So you were okay making mistakes. Perhaps your problem now is you think you're supposed to be an expert in the industry that you're in, and you're so afraid to make a mistake. Whereas, look how beautifully you did with podcasting, and you just grew, and so oh, wrong way. Okay, go back this way. Well, it's the same thing at your work. If you can just not be afraid of making that mistake, trusting that if you make it, you'll recognize it, and then you'll pick a different direction until you find the one that works. See, and then also trusting your innate ability to intuitively know what you need to do. See, when you trust all of that, then if you make a mistake, you can learn from it. There are a lot of amazing inventions that have come about because people made mistakes. And
yeah,
penicillin was a mistake.
that I didn't know, but
Yeah, it's mold from, I think it's from bread.
oh, I think
And
I did hear that.
and but there used to be a TV show on the NPR, not NPR, but the public television stations when I was living in Lake Tahoe, coming out of San Francisco, called Connections. And they would go way back and they would show you that this thing was invented, and then that caused that thing to be invented, and then this was invented, and then this person made a mistake and invented this, and it took you all, and it brought you all the way back to the present, and now you have this thing because of what went on back there. And it was really, really interesting and insightful and very well done. And and you build on things, and sometimes the things that get built on are mistakes. But we have to have that ability to give ourselves the Oreo cat and know that we're okay, even if we make a mistake, and that we're not perfect. And everybody makes mistakes. The key is to only make the mistake once. So you learn from that mistake, not to just keep making it again and again. And when we shut down to our emotions, see, that's when we're more likely to keep making the same mistake again.
Yes, no, I agree, and and I think that's one of the things that is happening. It's we're getting there. We're building these policies and procedures, and it's an interesting time, right? We are it's COVID's still a thing, right? We're in an interesting time to begin with, but all that aside, and I think this is something that people hear a lot, and maybe they just don't know how to apply it. I know it's scary. I know it's scary, right? It's scary to be in a boardroom and the mistake is yours, right? Somebody asks you, "Hey, did you do this?" You didn't do it. You forgot to do it, right? And you go, "Oh yeah, I did it," hoping that you can get downstairs and actually do it before anybody figures out that you didn't do it, right? But it may sting at first, right? When you go like, "Yep, it was me." But going back to Jocko, and one of the things that stood out from the beginning was I'm just going to summarize it. And anybody who's listening, I would highly recommend Jocko Willing, Extreme Ownership to anybody. It started out as a book. Just so you know, John, it started out as a book, more of a guide. Now they have their own program called Echelon Front. So it's not so much a book anymore; it's a practice, if you will. Like it's a mindset. So very good story. But anyway, so he starts out telling a story about how when they were at war overseas, there was a blue on blue, which means military U.S. Army forces were firing upon each other. And for those of you that don't know, lots of mistakes over there, and not even getting political. They didn't know the terrain, right? You don't know who's in every building. Miscommunication, and that happened a lot. Like if you listen to the book or any of their stories, that happened a lot. And I believe an ally who was working with them, a translator, was killed in the firefight. And he goes on to say, and he uses this example all the time. He used it on a TED talk he was doing. He gets everybody in the room. His commanding officers are there, and he's asking them, whose fault is it? Somebody goes, well, it was my fault because of this. And he goes, no. Whose fault is it? Somebody else says, no, it was my fault because of this. And he ultimately says to everybody, I'm asking all of you knowing whose fault it was, and it was mine. I'm the commanding officer. There was boxes I didn't check. This is on me. And it, like you said, it's okay to make mistakes. And I know it stings at first. I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, but I'm just saying, like, to anybody, it's okay to make mistakes. Not only Jocko, people I like higher ups, area directors that I've met or heard from as far as lessons in Marriott. One of them stands out. He was the area director of operations in one of the markets I was working in. And he's telling all of us, a group of young aspiring managers, how there was opportunities that he jumped on, and there was opportunities that he jumped on and he wasn't ready for it. He figured it out, but he tripped and tripped and tripped at the beginning. But another story from Marriott stands out. It's when the gentleman said that he made a mistake and he was sure he was going to get fired, and he goes to his boss. And his boss said, if you think that this is the biggest mistake, you're going to have a much more successful career than I did, meaning that he made plenty of mistakes along the way. But yeah, we all make mistakes. And I think it's healthy to communicate them in some cases. What do you think?
Well, it's healthy to do it. We're capable of doing it when we can give ourselves the "are you a cat" that we're fearful of losing from other people. If I tell you I dropped the ball and I'm not giving myself the respect, understanding, acceptance, caring, appreciation, and trust about what a great receiver I am, and that I just dropped the ball, or what a good receiver I am, I'm a really good receiver, but I dropped the ball. Then I can admit that I dropped the ball. But if I'm not able to tell myself or believe in myself that I'm a good receiver, then I'm not giving myself any "are you a cat." And then the only place I'm going to get it is from other people. And then I can't tell you I made a mistake because you're not going to respect me anymore. You're not going to understand and accept me anymore, or care, appreciate, or trust me. So when I can't give myself that love, that's the person who holds on to the second dimension of emotional healing, which is cause, effect, and blaming. And I'm blaming someone or something else, or I'm blaming you for why there was a mistake, and I'm not taking responsibility for what I did. So it is okay to admit we make mistakes when we can give ourselves the love that we're fearful of losing from other people. But if we're not able to do that, then it's going to be hard for us to admit that.
Yeah, no, definitely. You want to hear a funny story? So I was listening to, or I'm still listening. I got to finish it at some point. I'm listening to, I don't know how I would classify it. It's not really a biography. It's a leadership book. That's what it is, and it's about
So the
Reed
memoir.
Hastings. It's much more leadership. Like it's lessons. Like they give you bullet points at the end of the chapter, and leadership bullet points and stuff like that. It's about Netflix. It's Reed Hastings, and forgive me, I'm forgetting the second person's name. They co-wrote it together, but they're telling a lot of stories throughout their career and stuff like that. And and one of the things that they were talking about, or that he says, is that there's like a whole chapter on mistakes, and he's saying how in one instance he made a suggestion or said that this is what the company was going to do, and it didn't work out, and then afterwards everybody was kind of like, yeah, well, we kind of like thought that it wouldn't work out, but you're the CEO, so we figured you would know. And his reply to all of them was, I don't pay you to let me make mistakes. I pay you to tell me when I'm wrong, right? And and that can be intimidating too, right? You're like, well, this is going to be a mistake. Like, should I say something? Like, it's my boss. He's the CEO. He has to know what he's doing, right? But it just goes to show that even like the highest of the high doesn't always have the right answers.
Yep. Yeah. Well, the reason I ended up in Bucks County, Ken, if you follow the connections that I was talking about all the way back, it's because I made a mistake and left my lights on in my car. And the battery died, and then I had to go to a mechanic. And then the mechanic was a friend of my sister's because I just moved back to this area. And then he asked me what kind of work I do, and I was telling him what I do. And then he said, "Oh, I got a friend who needs counseling help," and then I got a job, and then I got a connection to somebody who was coming to that program, who then connected me up to the Philadelphia area for a workshop. And then I met some people and met somebody from the Peace Center, and and then they invited me up to come and do the groups that I do in Bucks County. And one thing led to the other, but it was because I made a mistake. And there's a spiritual perspective. If you're if you I don't know if you want to go there, but that really says there are no mistakes, there are no accidents,
Yeah.
Because it's saying that on a spiritual level, energy wise, we're all connected, and we know we know what's going on. And so I know that if I duck right now, I'm going to miss the pie that you threw at me. Or if I don't duck right now, I'm going to catch the pie that you threw at me right in the face. And it's real hard for a lot of people who have real severe traumas, that happen to them to believe that. But what the belief is that on a psychic level, we intuitively know and have agreed on that level to experience what we experience as an opportunity for us to learn how to be more loving and to be, to grow as a person. And it's a, very interesting way of looking at things. And, some people may not want to or be able to accept it, and that's fine. I'm not trying to push it on anybody.
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there as a way that, people approach things. And,
Well, I to back up what you said. Well, first of all, I always say, because it's scary to think that some things happen for a reason, right? It's scary to say that. I understand that, and I understand why some people don't want to believe it. I understand that some people want to believe that we are absolutely in control of everything that we do day to day, right? But when it comes to things happening for a reason, I often think about my daughter Alexis, who's going to be 16 this Friday. I don't know where the time went, and I know my personality. I know who I was when she was born, or even when I heard that she was going to be born. I can't guarantee that I would have picked or have been motivated to pick the path that I have if I didn't have her. Does that make sense? Because from a very young age, I was like, I felt I need to work. I did have to work. I immediately felt responsibility, right? There's this little life I'm responsible for. And even though she came early, and I'm thinking about this as I'm putting together things for her birthday, there was fear from our parents, right? There was fear who are now the grandparents. Fear, are they going to finish college? What's going to happen? Their lives are over, right? They're two kids with a kid. Her mom has gone on to be successful and built her own family. I feel that I've been successful, built my family, and everything's worked out. And it's really hard to think what life would be like without her, because she's just been great. Everybody loves her. She's the life of the party. She's smart. She's entertaining. But I digress. The point I was making is that I don't know where I would be now if I didn't have her to motivate me at such a young age. I could be in jail for all I know. I have no idea.
Yeah, well, you stepped up to the plate, as they say, and that's a good thing, and that's, a lot of people do that, because there's a certain degree of wiring that motivates you to take care of your offspring. Where it doesn't happen is when there's been trauma for people, and, like, so to speak, wires get short circuited, and then you're not able to step up to the plate. You're not able to be there in that loving way. You're in your own fear because of the wires that got damaged in traumas that you experienced. And then you just, project those things onto your children. You're in your fear, and then you project that fear onto the children, and then they don't feel the love. But when we can heal our wounds and, heal our traumas, and learn how to bring love into our life from me to me in the form of that "Are you a cat?" See, then I'm going to better be able to love others. But if I haven't learned how to do that for me, then the only place I can get it is from others. And even if people wanted to give me that, it's only gravy. They can't love me the way I need to love me. When I love me the way I need to love me, I'm cooking the meat and potatoes of my meal. And they can add the gravy, and then I got a really tasty meal. But if I'm not doing it for myself, I'm not going to be able to live off of what they're doing, because I'm if I'm not doing it for myself, then deep down I don't think I'm lovable. So I'm not going to believe you when you tell me that I am. So, it speaks to you that you did that, you stepped up, and and that's, kept you out of trouble. A lot of
Definitely.
parents, do activities for their kids, sports, dance, music, crafts, art, in order to keep them focused on something productive, so that they don't have, the idle minds, that get into trouble.
Random question for you. And even though we're on a topic, what do you think about like when you're that parent, and you're doing everything that society says you're supposed to do. You're supposed to keep your kid in extracurriculars. You're supposed to make sure they do their homework. You're supposed to make sure they excel in their academics and stuff. And then they just don't quite stay on the track. And my thought on this is that, and it's not the only answer, but my mindset, or my thought on it, is always, we as people, as human beings, as citizens, cannot control outside factors, right? If I see at my friend's house Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, random example, and my parents didn't let me watch something like that as a kid, right? And or they didn't let me watch it at the house, and suddenly I'm like, hey, I think I like fighting. I think I like martial arts. This is just something random, right? But I always think the outside factors, that's, you can do everything right, and there can be that one person, that one thing, that one song, whatever, that one piece of art, whatever, that draws that individual towards it. And mom and dad thought that they were building the path, and then the kid's like, nah, I want to do this. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes parents get completely wrapped up in their fears and try to build this lifelong agenda for their kids, and it's like, There's factors you can't control. Again, completely different topic, but what do you think while we're talking about it?
Well, I think that you've hit upon an important thing. Fear plays a big role in a parent's life. And as I've said many times, nothing puts a person in their fear quicker or deeper than fear around their children. But I think the mistake that we make as parents is when we think that we have to keep parenting that child, even though it's now an adult. And we think we have to tell it what to do and, make it go in a particular direction. Like that child doesn't have the energy or the motivation or the know-how to take itself in its own direction. You create a space for the child to thrive in, but if you paint the line down the road that they have to walk on, even the best child is going to say, but I want to walk over there. And then they're doing things to resist what we're trying to make them do, rather than doing things that they would like to do, which may have very well put them on that line, but it's of their own choosing. And so then they're motivating themselves to walk that line, which is much healthier than when we command them to do that. And I think that that's a mistake that a lot of parents make. I ran into that with my parents. They tried to, make me do things.
Then you grew your hair, right?
Well, when I grew my hair, that was a big, big thing. My dad called me Joanne, and, and he just
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing.
had a hard time accepting it, but, it was, I had beautiful blonde hair, and,
You still do.
It was more than one time that I would be in a bathroom, especially when I was, young and, going out to clubs and things. I'd be in the bathroom with my back to the door, washing my hands, and somebody would come in, with a few beers or a few drinks, and they'd stumble in it and they'd see me and they go, oh, sorry, thinking that they had accidentally walked into the girls' room. Because from behind they couldn't tell.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I grew a mustache, because when I had a young face when I was young, and so I grew the mustache so that I could at least say, see, I'm a guy.
I knew you were going to say that when you said that your long hair in the bathroom, but yeah, it's random. I don't know if it's a bullet point on this mini topic, this subtopic that we're throwing in here. So I asked my mother when she was on one of my podcasts, who are the parents, I asked her, that manage divorce the best? And she said it's the parents who are balanced, right? It's the parents that are really able to give themselves, are you a cat, right? They work a lot of hours, but the kids know they love them, right? Maybe they're big on fitness, but they also enjoy achievement. I'm just throwing things out here, but the parents that are able to be like, hey, you know what? It didn't work out. I'm still very happy with who I am. I'm still very happy with the life I live and the things that I'm doing. And I'm still going to love and respect my soon-to-be ex in one way or another, right? There will always be that mutual respect. But it's the people who can balance things. And I think that could go a long way with parenting too. It's like, well, I know you want me to do soccer, but I really want to start a band. It's like, all right, well, all right. We'll look into lessons. We'll figure it out, but you can't let soccer slip this season. Does that sound like a reasonable agreement if that was the case?
Well, you have to find that compromise. Moderation, doing things in moderation is a compromise.
Yeah.
And, ideally when a baby is born, they're 100% dependent on their parents, 100%. And as they get older, they start to learn how to depend on themselves. They can start to feed themselves. They can start to dress themselves. They can start to go to potty themselves, you know, and they can, learn and read. And so ideally you go from 100% dependency to about approximately by the time that you're 18, you have 100% independence, so that it's a smooth transition for that child, so that when they become 18, it's just a smooth glide into adulthood, because prior to that they've had opportunities to do things for themselves when it was age appropriate, and they learned to have the confidence that they could trust themselves and they could do things and they could create things, and then they become an adult and they thrive as an adult. I say ideally because very few of us, had that smooth transition. A lot of times, the parents do everything for the child, and then all of a sudden they're 18 and they say, okay, now you got to go do everything for yourself. Well, that's a huge step for that child to climb, because they're so used to being done for, and now they got to do for themselves. Talk about bringing up fear, and then procrastination. And then they're not able to, to do things or to thrive or to be successful, because we can't think clearly when we're in our fear. And so finding that balance as a parent, where you do just enough to help the child, but you're not doing everything for the child. And then the child learns to think on its own. It learns to trust itself. And then it becomes an adult and it can be successful.
So here's how I'm going to tie in what we just talked about to the actual topic tonight, which is fear and procrastination. I actually hit this mark with Alexis, and I had to have a conversation with myself before her. And maybe you remember with your parents, and I know that I think I remember with my parents, you kind of hit that point. You can hit that point with your teenager, no matter how good your relationship or bond is, where it's a little scary, right? It's like, oh my God, they're turning into a young adult. She has a boyfriend. She has a job. Well, I mean, it can be intimidating, right? It was for me, and I had to be like, no, like, even though I see this 5'6" young lady in front of me, I still have to remember that she is my daughter, and even though she doesn't like, actually, she doesn't really stop me, but I had this like roadblock. I'm going to be very honest, so I just need to say it. I was slightly intimidated. I was slightly scared by her, scared by her for no reason at all. I can't even, if you asked me to put my thumb on it, I couldn't do it. And I think maybe it was just her growing up. And then I had to remember, like, I might be making her upset. And what I mean by that is I was like, I'm lost in my fear. But she in her head is still my daughter, right? She's still my daughter. I'm still dad. So even though I see her getting bigger and liking other things and doing what a young lady should be doing at her age, she might be like, oh, why doesn't he hug me the way he did before? Why doesn't he hold my hand the way he did my whole life? Why doesn't he talk to me like I'm his baby girl? Or, and I was like, I caught myself, if that makes sense. And I was like, I need to start being dad again. And not that I wasn't doing what I need to do as a parent, but I was like, I need to be the dad that she's always known. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes very good sense.
Yeah. So where I'm going with that is, I think sometimes as parents, and I can't speak for all parents, but when our kids get to that teenage age, the fear is kind of like, well, I'm just not going to talk to them, right? You're going out? Okay, have fun. Have fun. I'm not asking any questions. I'm not like, oh, who are you going with? Or, I'm not, because now I'm lost in my fear of what they may actually be doing or not doing. And then I start procrastinating on parental obligations. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah. Parental responsibilities.
Let's say that, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, you know what I mean? Because it could be intimidating. Does that make sense? Like, I have to deal with this this was my baby. This is, for the longest time, this is my baby, my toddler. I just gave direction, and I could just hug and kiss and fix things with some TV or a juice cup or a pouch or whatever. And the game has changed, and I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm just like, okay, I love you. Have a good time. Be home at 8. Does that make sense?
You let her stay out to 8? No, just kidding.
But I got lost in my fear for a while. I was like, and
Well,
ask
yeah.
Monica. Just one more point. I'm sorry, and then I want you to speak on it. I do. The big thing for Monica and I, and we talked about this on a podcast, was I was afraid to look at her cell phone, and Monica had to do it. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to find. I don't know what she's saying. I don't know what. I was like, yep. I was like, she's fine. And Monica would be like, well, did you check her cell phone? And I'd be like, what do I need to check her cell phone for? Her grades are fine. Her grades are fine. I know who her friends are. She has a job. And Monica was like, you have to check her phone. And I was like, I'm not ready for this. And I just procrastinated it by not doing it.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's the, it's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the mirror of ourself. We know how we were, and we're afraid, our kids might be like we were. There's all kinds of things, and all of this, most of it is occurring in the fantasy world, in our thoughts about things that could be or might be. And it's okay to have those thoughts, but we have to see them for what they are. A thought about something that could happen. It hasn't happened yet, and stay in the moment, and then those fantasies don't run away with me by scaring me to death, or, making me, completely overlook things because I just think it's all going to be rosy, So, positive fantasies can be hurtful too if we turn them into expectations. But I can see how, you're just not knowing what you're going to find. And, and then there's a part of who I need to be as a parent to be responsible to my child and they're growing up. And then who did I want my parent to be as they let me be responsible for myself as a child as I was growing up. And trying to see that from both sides, it's a dance. How can they have independence and how can I take responsibility? It's a dance. And, and sometimes, you talk about, making mistakes, sometimes we hold on too tight. Sometimes we don't hold on tight enough. And, but we just have to do the best that we can and know that we're doing the best that we can. Be conscious as much as possible, as opposed to oblivious, and not stick our head in the sand. And most likely things will turn out, or they won't. And then I'll have to respond to it.
Yeah. And I hear what you're saying, and yeah, I did hit a point with her as a teenager where I just was. I wasn't ignoring her by any means, but I also was just I wasn't sure how to parent a teenager. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my goodness. I'm just like, yeah, well, and I'm being honest. Like there was times where I was like, all right, well, it didn't work out, so just do better next time. And thinking about it, I'm like, that's some pretty bland advice right there. But I think I told you this definitely on another podcast, or I definitely told you where I was like, I need to start talking to her like the adult that she thinks she is, right? Because when our parents tell us, "Oh, what do you know? You're only 16," then what do? We're like, "Oh, you don't." And what's the classic line? You don't know anything about me. You don't know how I feel, right? So I started the conversation with talking to a young adult, if that makes sense, and it's worked so far. But yeah, for a long time there, you ask Monica, she makes fun of me about it all the time. I wasn't ready to deal with teenage girl problems just yet, and I just would ignore it and hand it off to Monica or Alexis's mom, and I had to get over it. I was procrastinating because of fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, but when you stop, the ATFR squared, it's an acronym. So it's for acknowledge the anger, take a time out, find the fear, and then replace with are you a cat? Well, sometimes we're not at the angry point, but we are at the frightened point. So, I have to find the fear. And if I'm see that I'm frozen in something, or if I'm running away from something, or if I'm fighting about something, I need to say, what am I afraid of losing? What am I afraid of not getting? And then that will help me to understand what my fears are. And then that shows me where I need to do a better job of giving love to myself. I need to respect myself more. Where I do things that I want to do and I don't let somebody do something to me that I don't want done to me, then I'm showing respect to myself. I'm listening to my thoughts and feelings and paying attention to my behaviors. Then I'm understanding myself, accepting myself just as I am. Not as soon as I gain 5 pounds or lose 5 pounds, not as soon as I get that goal accomplished. And when we have the tools like that, they're like a map. And you were talking about your work and you have manuals to go to. Well, that's the beauty of the tools that I put together. It's a map of how to process through our emotional pain so that we can get ourselves to a healed place. And by almost by definition, a healed place is now a place where love is thriving, as opposed to no love, especially when it means coming from me to me. And so we can learn how to bring more love into our life on a regular basis. We're going to have a life that we love more. And nobody, including myself, is able to do that 24/7. But you do it as much as you can. And if you did it 5 minutes more today than you did yesterday, then you're increasing the love in your life. And so it's about doing it as much as I can, not beating myself up because I didn't do it long enough, and or deeply enough. And so
Yeah, and what was I going to say? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I had a question. I had a question for you who holds groups and you meet all sorts of different people and personalities and I feel, and I'm not bragging here for anyone who's listening, you can ask John. I've known John for, oh my goodness, since I was like 19, 20 years old. So quite a few years now. And I apply his lessons to my daily life. And it's a mix of John, my dad, Jocko, and his lead. Just, my one of my favorite quotes ever is when Sylvester Stallone, and I don't know if he coined it, but I heard him say it when he won the Golden Globe. And he's one of the most humble actors for all of you that know him. He just said, "I'm the sum of everyone I've ever met." Right? You take pieces of everyone you interact with, and you become that person. But the point I'm trying to make is that, or what I'm about to ask you is, okay, so I got to make the point first, and then ask you. So where I was going with John and Jocko and my dad and Sly and his comment is that I feel that after years of studying myself and tools and reading and stuff like this, I'm able to stop and be like, what is holding me back, or why am I reacting this way? And I can analyze it, right? So I want to ask you, for people who are listening, it's very easy, I'm sure, to see the aggressive side of things, right? It's like, well, I did this because you did that, or I'm behaving this way because my mom or dad or cousin or whomever years ago did this. What is fear and the procrastination the or the way it can paralyze people, to just because I'm trying to make a point here. What does it look like on the calm side of things when in your groups, when that person's just like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And it's kind of like, well, why don't we talk about why you're so good? No, I'm good. I have nothing to say. Like what's going on there in that type of fear, or
well,
that Yeah, that type of fear. Let's say that.
You see, there's a almost trick that goes on there. Let me plug in here.
It's okay. We're taking a quick break. John forgot to plug in. We don't want his laptop to die because then he's going to disconnect. I know I kind of went on a rant there, but I'm trying I was trying to make a lot of points, which my mom calls me out on it all the time on her podcast, saying that I asked 3 questions in one sentence. So I apologize. Oh, John, did you touch something? John, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Is it me? Did you hit the microphone? Hold on, he looks like he's got it. I can't hear you now.
I did was just.
Oh, there we go. You're good. You're good.
You got me. You
He's
good?
back. Yeah.
Okay. You see, it's not. When I'm in a group or I'm working with somebody, it's not what I'm thinking about that makes the thing work. It's what the person shows me. They show me where they need to go, what direction they need to take by what they bring up. And it's something that happens on an intuitive level, and it's just right there. It's the Gestalt, approach, that everything is happening right here. And it's that sum of all the parts, all the traumas, all the successes that bring you to the moment. And so, and the way to help another person to find out where they are is by asking them, what are you feeling right now? And when they start to look at what they're feeling, then they're better able to see what they're thinking that's causing the feeling. And then if what they're doing is bringing love into their life, great. But if what they're doing is bringing fear and anger into their life, then they need to take responsibility for what they need to change within themselves in order to bring love into their life, instead of what they need to make somebody else do or stop doing in order for them to have that love in their life. So, because people are experienced enough and smart enough to know what I think you want me to say, like flattering somebody, like when you're dating, especially, as a young person, and you maybe try to flatter the person, or you do things, you've learned, a person learns how to tell people what they want to hear. But what people don't know is how to fake their feelings, because they're happening on a different level for them, that one that they're not used to being in, and one that they can't, if I tell you a feeling, it has to jive with everything else that's going on for me, and if it's not jiving, then it's not a true, it's a made up feeling. And then when you have to put it in a sentence, so it's getting the person to find for themselves what they're feeling, and then see for themselves how they're not bringing love into their life, and then to see for themselves what they need to do to bring that love into their life. And all I do is be there with them, kind of hold up that mirror and have them look into that mirror enough so that they can see themselves to the extent that they need to see themselves, so that they can bring more love in, or address and alleviate particular fears. And and sometimes it's very challenging for a person, when I hold that mirror up, it's very challenging for them to want to look into that mirror, because they don't want to believe that pain is there, that is coming from them, they want to blame it on something somebody else did or said or didn't do or didn't say. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I realized I asked a very interesting question, or I'm trying to to ask what's on my mind in the form of a question and relate it to what's going on. And my long drawn out explanation before I asked the question was that I didn't realize right away why I was stalling, right? And then I said to myself, stop, right? You know what you're capable of. I'm talking to myself in third person. Why do you keep pausing? Right? You worked in one of the toughest markets in the world in New York City. You did it for 3 years. You have 3 podcasts. You enjoy taking on challenges. Why are you stalling on this? Right? Or not intentionally stalling, but unintentionally just pausing, right? And I guess the question I was trying to ask was, what's it like when there's a person who is stalling and they just don't realize why they're stalling, and they might keep saying to themselves like, I'm happy, and they may very well be happy, but there's certain things that they stall on. Does that make sense? It's like,
Yeah, well, you have to be with the person, and sometimes people aren't ready to look yet, and so
right.
it's important to respect that. And you know, I used to use the analogy that if you have an object and then you have water that comes in to the room, so to speak, and then it's putting up pressure against that object, and then the water level rises, and so now you got a greater force that's pushing on that object, and so you get to a certain height of water, and then that object starts to move, and it's a very gentle way, but persistent and sustaining way of creating movement for somebody. And sometimes it's a person's not ready to go there, and so I have to push. But then here, when they're saying that no, there's nothing here, and I don't want to go there, and then okay, and then come back another time. You know, there'll be another opportunity. If it's not there, and I'm mistaken, then they'll be fine. And if it is there and they're mistaken, it'll come up later. So it doesn't have to be done right now, today. And that's true about anything. You do the best you can. And if you don't, well, then you didn't get it done. So then what's that mean? Okay. So you deal with what it means. You do it a day late, um, I was watching an old movie, and I like the Turner Classic movies, from the 30s and the 40s.
Yeah.
And they were singing On Top of Old Smoky. And I've heard that song 100 times, 1,000 times, since I was a kid. But I don't necessarily hear the whole thing. And I heard them say for the first time, something, I procrastinated on my courting. That's why I lost my true love. And, and I was like, oh, wow, I never heard that, But the thing is, so you procrastinate on something, and then you lose something, or you lose that person who you thought was your true love. But then down the road, you find that there's somebody who is actually more so your true love. When I first tried to move up here in Bucks County, I found a house that I liked, and I said, okay, I'm going to buy it. And I put a bid on it. And before I even got the bid in, it was gone. So, and I came for the second house and I put a bid on that. And before I even, it was gone. And then when I got to the third house I was ready to put a bid on, which is the one that I own, I put it was accepted. And it was a much better house than either of the two that I, was going to, say, okay, I'll take the leap on this house. So I didn't get what I thought I wanted because the universe had something even better for me, and I needed to trust that it was going to work out.
So, a couple things as we get towards the end, because I want to say something to what you just said. I am aware that a few of the things that I was afraid of at work, which I've realized it and I've checked back in, and those who work with me have heard me say it and they live around me, and I've said it all this week. I've checked back in. I'm checked back in. I feel like I'm getting things done, and once you get over that hurdle and you actually do it, you find like, okay, I'm in the zone, right? I'm gonna keep typing because I'm over that writer's block. And I think there's this misconception that people have that, every movie that they see that they love, just like it flowed perfectly, right? It's like, no, it's like there was 100 cuts, there was 100 takes, something went wrong, we were over budget. You hear about it all the time. Terminator 2, one of the greatest movies of all time. James Cameron paid money to finish it, paid money out of his salary, and he said, I just want this movie to be perfect, and it paid off, right? And in some cases it doesn't, right? We gamble and it doesn't work out. And I don't mean like at the casino, but we take that chance and it doesn't work out. But there's this misconception that people believe that every beautiful product just like it just happened overnight, right? And of course, there's those cases where it did just happen, but everything takes time. There was hiccups, there was trips, there was reshoots that it didn't work. Their first album flopped, whatever, right? Whatever. But I think that in my particular situation, I know what I need to do. I figured out what the roadblock is, and I know what I need to do, and I don't have the luxury of just saying it's all going to work out. Now, here's what I want to say to align with what you're saying, and knock on wood because it's worked out thus far. There's been times where I've made appointments or I've scheduled something, and Monica's like, "Oh, you have this, you have this," and I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm not worrying about that." And she's like, "What do you mean you're not worrying about it?" I was like, "Just, I've got it, I've got it. Relax, I've got it." Because something inside of me was like, something's going to happen. Either you're going to make it or they're going to need to cancel. And that's just a random instance I'm using it to what you're saying about everything synchronizing, is that sometimes it just either figured out how to work itself out or sometimes it just wasn't meant to be, right? I guess it's sometimes you can totally overthink things. And that's why I made the point to say that in my particular situation, I know that there is guests who have paid a good amount of money for me to execute their event the way they envision it. So I don't have I don't have the luxury of being like, no, it's all going to work out, right? But yes, to your point, there's many instances where it's just like you're overthinking it. Like it's going to work out, it's all going to come together, or it's not going to work out, and things may still come together tomorrow, a week later, down the line, and that'll be the story you tell where it's like, oh, let me tell you something. If this had happened, I wouldn't be where I am today. You know what I mean? Which says, I think that you and I have said that along the way here today.
Yep. But when people have expectations, they want the expectation met. But when we try to match that expectation, we can possibly deny ourselves of something that turns out even better.
Yeah.
Because we have that script that has to be followed, and we aren't trusting that the flow will take us where we need to be, and maybe even in a better place than what I had even imagined it could have been. And, a lot of people plan everything, and some people live, fly by the seat of their pants, and live spontaneously, moment to moment. And then others do a combination of the two. And, find which one works for you and then use it until it doesn't work anymore. And then adapt, grow, trim, whatever you need to do in order to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I do. I'm not just saying it because I do totally agree with that. Because sometimes I find myself saying, like, I don't want to change my personality. And maybe you feel this way. And maybe people who are listening have felt this way at some point. I know what works for me. I like structure. I like organization. I like waking up at the same time each day. I like working out before my day starts. I feel structured. And then sometimes I see people who are living life and they're happy. And like you said, it's day by day, minute by minute. And not that I would change where I'm at for anything, but sometimes I'm just like, I envy you. I envy your ability to be able to just be so carefree and everything's working out for you. And I can tell you have positive energy and you're enjoying life. But then I reel myself back in and I say I'm very happy where I'm at. I have a beautiful family. I'm enjoying everything. So while that's your path and it looks fun and it's awesome and I hope you enjoy it, it's not what would work for me as a person.
Well, it's part of accepting myself where I am.
Yeah.
And see, and every living thing on the planet has power. And when it is able to own and use its own power, it's going to be, so to speak, all that it can be. The problem is when we see the power that something else has and then wish we had that. And then what we're really doing is disrespecting our own power. And I saw this years ago because I do men's groups and I do women's groups, and I would sit there and I'd be listening to men and they say, women have all the power. And then they'd go on for the reasons why women have all the power. And then I'd be sitting in a women's group and they'd say, men have all the power. And they'd go on all these reasons why men had all the power. Well, the thing is that men and women have power. And, use the power that you have and you will be a powerful person in your life. But when you're wishing you had the power that somebody else has, then you are not going to be able to use all of your power because you're spending time and energy wishing that, you had their power, and then you're getting away from your own power. On a more mundane level, it's like hair. I have 3 daughters, and of course, like any father, I think all 3 of my daughters are beautiful, and they all have different hair. It's on the blonde side, one's very blonde, one's, mixture of blonde and dark hair. And then the other one is, dark hair with blonde highlights. You'd be from the sun, and the pool and things. And, but the twins, they both have beautiful hair for themselves, but, they wish they had the other one's hair. Oh,
Yeah.
I wish I had your hair because it's straight. Oh, I wish I had your hair because it's wavy. They're both beautiful. Enjoy it. It's yours. God gave that to you.
Yeah.
Make good use of it. And when we, make use of the cards we're dealt or the lemons we've been served or however, expression you want to come up with, we're going to have a life that we love a lot more than when we keep wanting things that we don't have. And then it seems like we don't have anything because all I'm looking at is all the things I don't have. And I'm not seeing the things that I do have and the things that I can be grateful for.
Yeah. No, and that's what I think all the time is I'm very happy where I'm at. And it pays off in just about every corner of my life. And that goes back to what you've taught me about Are You a Cat? And why don't you tell everybody what Are You a Cat is? I know we didn't get to touch on it this episode. So if you're just catching up now, we apologize for explaining so late.
Well, no, I explained it, but
I'm sorry.
it's good to explain it again. I slipped it in and you didn't. It went right by you. See?
I'm so used to it.
Yes, yes. You was just like talking, about the weather. Um, Are You a Cat is an acronym for respect, understanding, acceptance, caring, appreciation, and trust. 6 ways that we give love to ourselves and 6 ways that we give love to others. And, then you have to break the words down into what they mean. Like respect is when I don't do anything I don't want to do or allow someone else to do something to me that I don't want done to me, then I'm giving myself respect. Understanding is listening to my own thoughts and feelings and paying attention to my behaviors, that I'm giving myself understanding. Acceptance is to accept myself just as I am, not as soon as I gain 5 pounds or lose 5 pounds, not as soon as I get that goal accomplished, but to accept myself right now where I am with all of my wounds and mistakes. Caring is making sure that I eat right, get plenty of rest, keep my mental and physical hygiene up, and keep my environment clean. Appreciation is to appreciate who I am and who I've been, and the value of it all. Trust is to trust that I'm going to do the right thing at the right time, that things are going to work out, and I'm going to do what I need to do to make it work out. And so those are 6 roadmaps of how to give love to yourself. And when you do those 6 things, you are going to be giving love to yourself. When you do those 6 things for other people, you're going to be giving love to other people. And when we give love to ourselves, we have more love in our life. When we give love to others, we have more love in our life. And that's how you create more love in your life, with your thinking and how you're approaching things, how you're looking at yourself and others, as opposed to knowingly or unknowingly allowing myself to be in my fear. And all fear is an area in my life where what is missing is love, and the love that is missing is love from me to me. So when I allow myself to stay in my fear, then that's when I'm more likely to turn it to the secondary emotion of anger, and then try to make somebody else give me those Are You a Cats. But like I said, even if they do, they can only give me gravy, and I need to give it to myself. And that's the equivalent of cooking meat and potatoes of the meal that I have to live off of.
Perfect. Beautiful. I love it. I never get tired of hearing it. Perfect. So I think that's actually maybe a good spot to start wrapping things up. It is always a pleasure, but as always, let's give some people give the people the information on how they can reach you if they enjoy your teachings, which I know a lot of people do. I do. So where can we reach you, John?
Well, email is contact@supportivealliance.com, or the website is supportivealliance.com.
Perfect. So, John, thank you so much, as always, for doing this podcast with me. I always enjoy your insight. We always have great conversations. This one, I know we got a little bit here and there, but I think everyone gets the gist of what we were trying to say. But yes, as always, a big thank you to you for participating.
The spontaneity of going with the flow, and it's who we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love us or don't love us, it's okay.
We'll be back. We'll be back in 2 weeks regardless. No, but John, thank you very much. And to everybody who's listening or listening via the via your favorite podcast outlet, thank you so much for listening. And we will see you next time. Take care.
Take care, everybody.